Because of the fact that our last, is it on? I thought they shoved it up back here. The fact that last year's chair was Jim Abrahamson and he's no longer on the committee, I will act until we get a new chair. So at this time, I'd like nominations for the chair of this year's Rules and Regs Committee.
Can you first state who's on the committee?
I'm stating who's on the committee. Jerry Hobert's on the committee, Tia Bidwell's on the committee, Steve McKee's on the committee, and David Brandenburg.
I would nominate Jerry Holbert. He has previous experience on the committee. I think he'd do a fine job.
Other nominations?
Nominate Steve McKee.
Other nominations? If not, I ask that they cease at this time. And you want a hand vote, or do we do secret hand vote? Or do we do secret ballot? Hand vote, okay. Hand vote for Jerry Hobart. Hand vote for Steve McKee. Okay, that appears to be a tie. We vote again?
May I comment?
Yes.
In thinking about what Mr. Abrahamson had said a couple of meetings ago, that it would be a good idea for the new directors to have and develop and get more experience. And I think that that would lean in my favor.
Okay. Other input? Vote again?
We can do another vote.
Another vote. Jerry Hobart. Steve McKee. Okay, obviously we have a tie once again, and protocol is not stated, so
Yeah, I would recommend that we, there's not going to be consensus on who's the director's going to be, that we'll go to a vote of full board to appoint a chairperson of the Rules and Regs Committee.
okay. And I will act as one this evening.
Yes, if you would continue to act as, what do you call
I'm a
it?
non-voting member.
A sit-in
Sit-in,
chairperson,
excellent.
yeah.
Okay, I can do that without any problem at all. Tom, do you want to talk about the proposal?
You'll see the date on this document is April 16th. The board was working on this back then and then decided that it would be best to not approve a policy change that would have an impact on the incoming or new board, whatever you would like to refer to. So they decided to move that to June, which we are now in. The thought process behind this is that right now the way the governing documents are written, or the policy is written, is that a board member would not be in jeopardy of losing their seat for if they missed 4 monthly meetings over a year period. So theoretically, they could miss all of the committee meetings that they are liaison for. They could miss all of the GM meetings, miss all of the work session meetings. But as long as they did not miss up to 4 regular meetings, which tonight is the regular meeting, according to our governing documents, it's our regular meeting, they would not be in jeopardy of losing their seat, yet they would have missed a significant number of meetings. So the idea back in April was to add a little higher bar to that and to say that a board member could miss no more than 1/3 of the board GM meeting, the work session. We didn't. This is the old version. All here. Okay. No, we updated it. No, that's still not the right one. Because it still has the word special meeting in there. We dropped that wording.
I don't remember dropping it, I thought we discussed it.
So what
It
the
says discussion. Is that what it says?
Yeah, so what we could do, so what the idea was, is to make the bar would be the GM meeting, the work session, and the regular meeting, and no other meetings. And that a board member would have to attend, would have to miss no more than 1/3 over a 6-month period. And the reason why this came up, and this actually occurred at my previous community where we had a board member that was missing, and in my opinion, an egregious number of meetings. Was not attending the GM meeting, was not attending the work session, so really was not knowledgeable about the subject matter that they were voting upon at the regular meeting. Yet, even though they had missed a tremendous number of GM meetings and work session meetings, they were still under the threshold with regards to the regular meeting. And so that's where it came from. That's that.
What you're talking about, we did discuss in the meeting. I don't think a vote was ever taken. It was some sort of a consensus that maybe the idea had changed about what we're defining in there. Oh my gosh. Where's the function we needed? I believe that's possibly what you're talking about, because I rephrased it. And I also changed a couple of words. You guys look it up, please.
Even though board members are assigned to committees or JCs, that would not be included, is that correct?
Well,
Yes, look at that.
the board had decided to exclude that, no disrespect to the committees, but felt that the board meetings were of higher importance.
And I also understand that illness is situations is treated on an individual basis. Because I know in the past we've had board members that have had extenuating illnesses for a couple months, and those were forgiven because of the fact that they had an illness.
This is not a hard and fast rule that must always be adhered to. At my previous, where I worked previously, we had a situation where the board member got pretty horribly sick and was out for an extended period, and the board allowed that, and they returned in their full capacity, and that was acceptable in the minds of the board. So this board absolutely could do that. Briefly reading what Steve put together, I don't see any issues. I probably would want to take a little bit more time, but yeah, it's basically what we talked about at the GM meeting.
And we've also said that call-in is the same as being present.
Correct.
I think I'd like to consider taking out the part that says the board work sessions. There are no votes taken at the board work sessions, so if a person misses those, I don't feel it's critical. But the general manager meetings and the monthly meetings, in my mind, are very important, and that's when the real work is done. Like tonight, we took votes, and we'd like to have people present. But the work session we put together in the general manager meeting, we agree on what's going to the work session. It's presented to the public, and we get comment.
But the work session is the first time items are brought to the public and discussed openly. So I think that that's a high priority meeting, because that's your first discussion with general public.
And I think I should also comment that it is not a foregone conclusion that changes will be made to these policies. The board could say, we like the way it's written right now, and to walk away from it. That's fine. These were only suggested changes.
Yeah,
I like the way that it's written currently. I'm not fond of this. We are adults. I knew signing up for this was going to be hard to work full time. This board has more meetings than any other board I've ever been on. And boards that handle much more financials and larger matters than even we do, which is huge. And to make it mandatory and have an absent policy for this many a month is very hard and makes it where people like me don't feel we can do this and help our community. So the way it is now, I actually do like what you said, there are some amendments here that I really like. The rolling 6 months makes sense. If the work session was taken off, I could see myself liking this and making it a little more stringent, but what your example was, Tom, is someone who's obviously not meeting the bill. They're not doing their due diligence. And I don't think that's because of absenteeism. Even if they weren't here, would that person even have read the documents that they've been doing what they're supposed to be doing?
I don't disagree.
Other discussion?
Yeah, I would like to also include in here that, about attendance by phone for the work session and the regular monthly meeting. I am not a fan of allowing attendance at the GM meetings by phone. Those meetings are involved, and confidentiality is, in my mind, is a very big issue. So, when someone's on the other end, you have no idea who's listening. So I would like to preclude attendance at the general manager's meetings by phone. The other ones I have no problem with. That's, it's a good option. But
Doug, can I legally do that?
Pardon? Yeah. And you could distinguish which ones you want to allow by phone. It's up to the board.
Also, we now have the capability of doing video conferencing. So we're going to talk about calling in via phone. We also need to talk about video conferencing also for the person we have there.
That was my chuckle, is every time we have a new form of communication, are we going to change policy? So, obviously I'm not going to hold
Well,
it.
I suppose then if you were to change it, you would say electronic participation rather than by phone.
Yeah, whatever the,
Video is not phone.
whatever, how did you define present, or have you done that? I thought we had, which is why I sort of changed the wording. But I also like what Tia had said was, and Tom emphasized this at our candidate meeting when we were candidates, is that there's a huge time commitment. There's going to be the GM meeting, there's going to be a work session, there's going to be and then there may be executive sessions and there may be discussion sessions. And so that emphasis needs to continue. But I would also say that the idea that what the definition of present is should also be emphasized. And along those lines, I believe, it's not written anywhere, but I think it's certainly a feeling amongst the board is that we want to encourage participation and we want to enlarge the pool, so to speak. So that's a goal. And so if we are acting against it by making these major restrictions, we're sort of preventing ourselves from doing what we're trying to accomplish.
So we've talked about, you have to have a quorum as a board to vote on issues, right? So being present, you have to be present to vote, and be present to have a quorum, and being present we have defined as by phone or video or actually in presence. So.
And also, however you want to say it, people can shut their doors, to be private. I mean, I don't think that's really an issue too much. I really wouldn't worry about it. So,
David, if it makes you feel any better, I mean, I will always, at the GM meetings, be on my phone. It's just that my work schedule does not allow me to get here by 9:30, 30 minutes travel, and 30 minutes after. And other working people are going to have the same issue. I do have a door to my office. I understand it's confidential. I do have headset on. No one else can hear the phone conversation. If we need to make that in writing for people that join.
Well, with that in mind, Tia, all of these meetings, the time is not set in stone. You know, you spread them out during the day, you know, trying to, you know, include as many people as possible. Maybe we pre-include people because they can't have them all at different times. But if the general manager's meeting started at, say, 12:30 with, you know, in the afternoon, is that an option? I know you have a phone call at 3:30. And if we were to start at 12:30, you know, I'd have to clear it with these guys to make sure that they can make it, but.
There's just no way. I mean, to be very clear,
At 12:30?
it's 30 minutes here, it's 30 minutes back to work. We didn't have much. There's no way.
So
How can you be on the phone when you're at work?
I've already got permission from my leadership before I even signed up to be a candidate. They
Okay, so-
understand this commitment.
So basically, you're not working at work.
Yes, I'm absolutely not working at work.
Okay.
I'm using my own lunch. I'm salaried, so I work extra. I work
Oh, you
later.
can work all night long.
Yes.
I think we should be a little bit careful about being too specific with an individual board member. This is a policy that we will enact that will hopefully carry forward for years and years. So,
Yeah.
I think we need to be general.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to speak for my own opinion. You know, technology has come a long way. Video conferencing is a very effective way to have meetings.
Absolutely.
And calling in is as effective as the purchase. You know, if you're on the other end doing emails and not really paying attention, that's, you know, shame. I'm not saying that you're doing that.
No.
I'm just saying that that's on you. But I think that in the effort to be more inclusive, and we don't even know what the next innovation is going to bring with regards to how people are going to be able to participate. But I think being more inclusive, in my opinion, is a good thing.
Jerry?
That's,
I think they're on.
It makes it easier for our
think
guests
they're on.
to hear us.
I think one thing that we need to remember out of all of this, and that's what started the process in the beginning, because I was part of the last rules and regulations committee, that members are voted on by other members. And generally speaking, those members can't attend meetings for one reason or another. They try to get their information to the board member. Hopefully that board member will represent them and represent all people, all members, not just part of them, all of them. And if we're not at the meetings and partaking with things, listening to the other comments, it becomes a problem in my mind that we're not representing the people that voted for us. And maybe I take things a little bit too seriously. I think if we can move towards the video conferencing and feel comfortable that it's working the way it should, they're difficult, but they can work. Simply because oftentimes there are people that dominate the conversation and the person on the other line can't get in. And once that happened to you the last time, you had questions, but then you run out of time. So we have to be careful in how we're doing it. I don't know, I've talked to a number of members about this particular issue. It's about 50-50, because some of the members don't care what happens, which is unfortunate. But other members, I mean, that's why they vote on a particular person to represent them. If they're not there. So we have to come up with some method, probably leave it as it is for now, until we can come up with a good method to use electronic equipment to include more people that can make those type of meetings. We also need to look at our schedule of when meetings are held. I'm not a fan for late night meetings. I'm a morning person. I usually get up by 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and going through my stuff and so on. Other people are just the opposite of that. So we have to take all of them into consideration when we're dealing with
I'd just reiterate the earlier comment that they're all good concerns, but they're also sort of after the fact. And in other words, you're already a director. So maybe more of an educational emphasis in on what it would take and how many meetings there are, et cetera, because, and you know, along those lines also, what was shared with us is that, you know, you do have a duty of care. You're a fiduciary, and you're obligated to be there. Ignorance is no excuse. Failure to attend meetings and et cetera, is personally liable. So that needs to be emphasized, and maybe because we do want that inclusion, but we also want to you know, make sure everybody realizes what's coming down the pipe. And that video conferencing, et cetera, should ease a lot of the discussion.
We've done the orientations, or the candidate orientations, for 2 years in a row now. Prior to that, we typically saw of every candidate packet that was picked up, 70% were returned.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since in the 2 years we've done the orientation, it's dropped to 40%. Now I can't.
It's related.
I can't say 100% it's related, but I think that most people are saying, wow, the commitment level is a lot higher than I thought it was. Maybe I'm not as interested as I am.
You gotta be upfront about it. You know,
Well,
it is what it is.
And that's what we're trying to do, is trying not to scare people away, but just to inform them of what the commitment level is. And I think that's why we've dropped so high and so much.
With regard to the technology question, we drafted a change to the bylaws 3 years ago that I think would do well in our policies and procedures as well. It just says do the ongoing development of technologies. You can use the most up-to-date version to do blah, blah, blah. It didn't say blah, blah, blah. And we could adopt that and put it into the policies. I think it would fit well. But I think what you were saying, what Jerry was saying, right now it says being absent from 3 consecutive regular monthly board meetings or 4 regular monthly board meetings during the organizational year. So that's what it says currently. Is there an appetite to change that? I guess.
Well, like Steve says, you know, present. Is there a place in here that says phone is considered present?
No, we just made that analysis from a legal standpoint, and I've made that recommendation to the board that present, you know, it says must be present in the bylaws, and so I've given an opinion that presence means by phone or video conference.
Do you think it's a good thing?
We could legislate that if you want to make it perfectly clear.
Electronic communication or something like that. All-inclusive term. I mean,
That's something that we would end up taking to the board and see how the rest of them feel about it. But, you know, it's in the interest of including people. You know, you got to consider it.
See, I'm going to be very blunt, and it's not pointed to you. And the issue, I think, if we carry this on and change it, it's saying to you, this isn't you. And that's the last thing the board wants, to point out one particular person that we're seeing as an issue that isn't available at the meetings, and we want every possibility that she can be present at meetings, be it FaceTime, be it telephone, whatever the case may be. And leaving it as is assumes you're going to do your very best, as everybody else is, to be present in any way they can. And personally, I'm not sure that's not the right move to do at this time, is leave it as it is.
I would say leave it as it is, and I would again emphasize, I think it's fairly clear, but as a candidate, I think that's where the focus needs to be.
Yeah, I think what also can happen is, and this didn't happen in the previous location, is the board chair, if there is a problem occurring, the board chair can pull that person aside and say, hey, what's going on here?
We have had that. We had, three years ago, we had a member that had to resign because he could not make the meetings. And he recognized that himself, he could not make the meetings. And after trying to make arrangements and changes, etc., he still could not make the meetings. He was out of town. And so he finally said, I need to resign. So it's took it upon himself to do so. So we have faced that. But I didn't want in any way to say that I'm picking on you or singling you out. It's an issue that left alone and work out what attendance means.
Yeah, we
I think is to do our very best to have everybody there. Yeah,
4 months ago.
yeah,
Then it got tabled, so.
yeah.
Yeah. We've got tabled because we wanted to bring it up with the new board, because it's definitely going to affect the new board members. And so, but do you guys think that we should remove the part that says special meetings?
Absolutely.
I mean, I would be in favor of removing the, counting special meetings in the rolling count or whatever it is.
Right, I think that part would everybody pretty much agree on, because the executives meetings or the discussion meetings, they're just fairly random. So everybody was like, yeah, let's.
None of us can promise what we can do.
Okay.
during the-
And so it may come back to bite anybody. And then it depends on how strictly, someone wants to enforce. In my opinion, it's fine the way it is. I think it's trying to solve a problem that maybe happened, once in 3 years, and how many
It's
times.
happened more often than that, but that's a situation that's recent. It's happened more often than that. But see, that's before the technology changed. And that's what we're dealing with now. So I think the bigger issue on the table is, do we want to leave it as it is?
Well, we can go back to the board and say, we're not making any recommendation to change it, except maybe we'd like to consider taking out the special meetings. And, we talk about it at the GM meeting and see what.
Well, in the past, there is no, it does not call for special meetings.
It's on the
It's not,
regular.
it's on the regular Thursday meeting.
Just the regular meeting.
Regular Thursday
Say
meeting.
nothing about GM meetings.
No, it says nothing about any other meeting, just regular
Okay, so if
meeting.
we don't change it,
If you don't change it, that's what it
there's
says.
only 12 meetings a year.
That's correct. And according to this, you can't miss 4 meetings.
3 consecutive.
3 consecutive or 4 total within a year.
Pretty
We
lenient
need
policy.
a motion to leave it as it is.
We need motion.
I would think it's.
Well,
Die for lack of discussion.
yeah, that's basically it. If you can't make a recommendation to move
Yeah.
forward with it, then it's
It
died.
died. It dies on the table.
Can we table it, or is that?
You table it, you have to bring it up again and discuss it again. If you want it to die as is, you let it die.
I think you have a choice. You could vote to say we're leaving it as, or you could just walk away and close the meeting. Either accomplishes the same thing.
Somebody want to make a motion?
And either way that we decide, then that gets reported to the full board. Sure.
Ultimately, this committee, it's a recommendation to the board. This committee does not have adjudicatory powers. They have advisory powers.
And so the board itself can come back and say,
Sure.
okay, guys.
Yeah, we want you to
That's
make
the
a
process.
But when you have 4 out of 9 voting in one direction, chances are that they're going to go with that agreement, that recommendation.
When we report back to them, we can ask them how they feel about the special meeting. Well, it's not in there, right?
No.
We'll find out what the board thinks.
So I would move we just table the issue and leave it as it is. Did I say that
Do you
right?
want a table issue, or do you want to leave it as it is? Can't do both.
Tabling means that you're going to bring it back up
Back up for
later.
discussion. To leave it as it is, you leave it as
I
it
make
is.
a motion.
You just want to end the discussion and
Leave
and
the
adjourn
policy
meeting.
as it is
Leave the
written.
policy. You just want to adjourn the meeting.
You want to leave the policy as it is. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, that's what I would.
That's what he's asking. Do we have a second on that? Okay. Discussion on that? If not, we'll call for a vote. How many would like to leave it as it is?
What if we vote 2-2? What happens?
Well, it's already 4 to nothing. So it will be left as is, and that will be reported to the board for
Yeah, the next minute.
next
Might be like
meeting.
the Supreme
And
Court.
simply say that's what happened. And also will be passed on to the GM meeting to have the entire board vote on the chair for this committee.
Oh, that would be an executive session.
That'll be public.
Yeah.
Okay. So at the next board session? Okay.
Discuss it at the GM meeting, so that's
That's
coming up as an issue.
coming up in the work session.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could I toss out one last thing, and we sort of hit on it, is just the, if people might consider the idea of what it takes to be a candidate. And again, you know, is there something besides, well, you gotta be a member in good standing? Is that perhaps something to look at?
I think
So we've talked about that. So in the declaration, it defines that you have to be a member in good standing. There is no flexibility, and it's at the highest level meetings in the declaration. Doug and I have had this conversation. We said, well, you know, could we exclude someone that has a felony record or something like that? And unfortunately, it does not. The declaration, which is you have to change the declaration, which is near impossible, and it's at the highest level. So it's not a policy. I agree. I mean, I personally would not want to have a person with a felony record as a board member. But that's not how the governing documents were written. They said a member in good standing. And that's all it says.
So if you pay your assessment, you're in good standing.
Yep, you can be a truly egregious person and still be in good standing.
Pay your assessment. Hopefully, it would meet itself out as we go, Steve.
But in the age of social media, I'm sure that information would get out
Very
rapidly.
quickly, very quickly. Okay, any others? If not, let's adjourn this meeting. Thank you.
That is your home.
It's
still live.
We had that exact conversation 3 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's. Yeah.
Can you edit that out?